Alright, you old gearheads, howdy there, Yamasaki here, and welcome back to Yamasaki RC. And this video is going to be the continuation of the Lauson Model W hit and miss engine. This is part 2. So, it's only been a few days since part 1, and I've actually gotten quite a bit done on this little thing. I got most of the parts off. There's almost nothing left to it. We're going to get into that because I know it doesn't really look like it. But the most noticeable difference, sorry, can't speak as usual. The most noticeable difference is it's off of its stand. I was able to get it off the stand. You just had 4 bolts going through each of these big planks here. Looks like there was a third one. I didn't drill it right or something. I'm just now noticing that. That's interesting. But that's going to be pretty simple to restore. I just got to get all the hardware off of it, make some new planks, paint it, and then put it back together. And this, kind of the same deal. Take it apart, fix it up, paint it, put it back together, boom, slap the two together, we got ourselves a hit and miss engine. But all throughout today I've just been taking other parts off of it. I got the mag off, we'll talk about that. I got the governor assembly off and the camshaft and all that other stuff, even the small bits and pieces that you wouldn't really notice, like the splash plate that was in the hopper here. Yeah, I got almost everything off. I even got the bearing caps on the back here on the crankshaft. Those have come off. I'll take one off here in a little bit and show you guys the journals on the crankshaft. They look excellent, so that is great. So yeah, pretty much the only thing left that's on this thing, aside from the gas tank down underneath. I haven't really inspected that yet because I can't do it with, you know, 150, 200 pounds. Clamping it to the earth with the gravity that this thing's hugging. So I'm going to wait on that, but still got to deal with the piston. I know for a fact that it's free here at the joint here on the connecting rod and the piston, because earlier today I had the bearing caps off and I lifted on these flywheels and I saw it moving back and forth as it needed to do. So that's good. I'm not sure about here, but I got one of the bolts out. Got a whole bunch of small pieces that I can go and show you here in a bit, but water tubes out, splash plate, like I said. Yeah, there's nothing left. We're down to the bare bones here. And I actually discovered, I don't know if I mentioned it in the last video, but this pulley system, see, this is your old flat belt pulley. This is your old style of pulley. Then you got your newer style V-belt pulley right here. Well, I didn't notice until, I don't know, several hours ago. There's only 3 nuts and there's studs on it, and it's only held in by 3 nuts on the flywheel there, so that's pretty cool. We'll get that off and do our magic to it when we can. I'm really not sure what the hell's going on with this piston. Looks like there's some sort of mechanism in there for something. And there's also a nail. You guys can see that? There's a nail in there where there's supposed to be a cotter pin. So that's quite interesting. So let's go ahead and move on to the parts. I've mainly just been painting them. Done my usual. I've evapor rusted them, cleaned them all up. Pretty much in the painting stage until I get to this, so I'm pretty much just going to have a whole bunch of ready to go parts and I got to slap this thing together. This is what's going to take the most time, is getting all this old paint. I'm sure this is lead based paint, so it might be tricky to get off, but I've had good luck so far and I hope I can go along with it, that's for sure. Yeah, and we're not really going to talk about any of this because we did all that in the last video, but I did put the fork on the push rod here. Aside from that, haven't done anything with that. Haven't done anything with the head, still letting it soak because I'm still battling that valve. Hopefully we can get it out of there without breaking it. I really don't want to break it. There's our Magneto. We're going to go over that in a little bit. Kind of a interesting bugger for sure. Alright, going over here to my little paint booth, at least my temporary paint booth sometimes. Got a couple of parts. We got the tapered screws here, and those hold the mag to the actual engine, hold the bracket together, and then you got two other screws on the actual mag facing the other way, and that's holding the bracket on it. This is the little spring catch right here. Just bolts onto the block, keeps one side of the spring held down and everything. So I've primed these parts. We're going to go in there and check out the other parts. I just put the first coat of red on them, so I think I can put the second coat on now. Yeah, looking pretty good. A lot of the parts, a lot of the smaller parts are going to be red, and then the whole main body of the engine is going to be gray with some gray accents. We got our, I think this is our Magneto actuator somehow. Runs off of the push rod, and that catches right there on the Magneto and pulls it down. So that's quite interesting. We got our drain plugs for our hopper and then our oil bath for our crankshaft. Managed to get those out. A little stiff, but got them out in the end. There's our splash plate. I've only put one coat on all of these, so I need to go ahead and do another. These ones are all done though. This is our oil drip lubricator pipe that goes down to the cylinder. Got it painted. And there's the top part of it. Painted it smoke gray, just to give a little differentiation in color. We've got our 4 head bolts. And then I've got a little grease cap right here. One of the grease caps. Cleaned it up the best I could, and then I just painted it red like everything else. Because, I mean, that's originally what the color was of the engine, I think. I think the gray that I'm seeing on the engine was probably the primer. And then here's our little bottom to that grease cap. You can kind of see how it works. Kind of got flutes in there. And the way you do this is you fill that cup. Every time you screw it down, it squishes that grease down into the joint that you need it to go to. So, pretty interesting, fascinating technology there. Very simple, but very effective. Very effective. They wouldn't have used it if it didn't work. And then here's the rest of the small parts. A lot of these are the hold downs that hold the engine to the stand. All the nuts and bolts and washers to it. Here's one of our connecting rod bolts. There's our connecting rod nut. These pieces here, where's the other piece? This piece here, these springs all go to the wow, I cannot speak, the Magneto functionality of the engine. As you can see, I evaporusted them. Let them cool by the stove for a little bit. You can already see there's flash rust forming. So if you don't get the oil or grease on these parts, they're going to start rusting again. Just a forewarning. That's exceptionally bad. Wow. Not really worried about it because it'll just wire wheel off. It's starter rust. It's nothing too sticky. And here I'll go ahead and show you the governor assembly. If I can get it out of here. It's been soaking in here for a couple hours now. Very, very greasy. But it's looking pretty good so far. And evaporust is a mild grease eater. It doesn't do the best job, but if you keep it in there long enough, it definitely will do some damage. Another grease cap there. There's our cam right there. I don't know, our trip mechanism, that all goes down there. So all this will be red and be nice and pretty. Definitely needs to soak in there a bit longer. And then I haven't checked on these pieces here. These are the support pieces for the main wheel on the frame. And it still looks like they can stay in there a while. I couldn't get these screws out of it, out of the actual plate here, so I just left them in there. But I'll just get everything back in there. Come on. Get all the way down in there, in your bath. There you go. Wash the glove off. Stuff gets crappy real quick. So that is the governor assembly. Still need to work on it, but there is one major part on it that's stuck. And the only way I'm getting it unstuck is with my favorite solution. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this big-ass old Magneto here. This is a Wicco, or a Wyco. Really don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so do correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments below. But I guess these things were pretty popular on these old hit-and-miss engines back in the day. I'm not sure what manufacturers used them and who didn't, but there's enough videos and rebuild kits out there to make me assume that these were fairly common. Don't know how many are left nowadays, 100 years later, but they're out there. You can take this apart and reassemble it, and I need to go back and rewatch the videos because I've probably already forgotten what those lads were saying. But your access panel goes all the way around. You got 4 screws that comes off, and these front and back plates come off. I know here there's a spring because I can press that in and it'll come back out. It's under tension. Now this is supposed to move up and down, which it does. Fairly stiff. I'll show you the bracket on the back here. There's the bracket that I need to get to. Probably use an impact driver to get those unstuck and free. But there's not much to this thing. I just think it takes a little time to get this thing figured out. This is brass, by the way. I know it doesn't look like it, but it is. It will look as pretty as the oiler, which I also need to show you the oiler. Now that I think about it, that thing turned out really pretty. So let's go ahead and do that. But that is the Magneto. Alright, so here is the drip oiler. This thing turned out beautiful. Solid brass. What I ended up doing for this thing is I boiled it in hot water to get that grease loosened up. I think somebody was putting grease in this thing, judging by a grease zerk here. And I know a feller back in my Dream Machine video had commented saying that those grease zerks don't work on this hit and miss engine. I need those grease cups. And so I took that out and I let this boil in the water for maybe about half hour. And got a lot of it. I ended up ultrasonic cleaning it too. I know there is some stuff still stuck in here. I think there's a check ball valve in there somehow. You can just barely see it in there. But I just ended up using the buffing wheel to buff this brass, and it turned out beautiful. Beautiful. And I ended up ordering a new glass piece from Flywheel Supply. Hope I got the right size. I think it was like 1 5/8 by 2 inches, 2.5 inches, 1.5 inches. I'm not sure. Probably 1.5 inches, 1 5/8 long, and then 1.5, 1 3/4 inches in diameter, if I remember correctly. But yeah, that's the drip oiler. Hoping it works. I think I need to just get some oil in it and get it doing its thing again, and I bet it'll just shine on. So as you guys know, this engine is locked up via the piston. Well, earlier today I was able to get my wire wheel down in there, kind of acts as like a rough hone. And I was actually able to clean it up pretty good. It doesn't look terrible in there. I've got a hone that'll actually work for honing this thing out, but it cleaned up pretty good in there for just going real slow with the wire brush a couple times. So I'm happy about that. The way I'm going to do this, and put this flashlight down here, is I'm going to lean this thing up on its front end and on its ass to see if I can get some evaporust to soak on this side of the piston and on this side of the piston, as well as get my oiler set up good enough to where it will drip oil down the cylinder, and hopefully I can get this piston free. From the looks of it, it looks like the rust mainly stuck back here on the back. So with any luck and hope, that those rings, hopefully they're in good shape. So yeah, let me go ahead and show you what I mean by standing it up. So here we go. This is the easy side, because these skids right here go back far enough that it adds a little bit more support to the butt end, and then it can just rest on the flywheel and the crank. The front side, however, is going to be tricky because these stick out past the engine. So I was thinking maybe cutting a 2x4 same length and having it just rest right there to get the back side. The back side is more important than getting this front side, but I guess they're both important. I think it's crazy. 100-year-old bolts, 100-year-old wood, holding that thing upright. These engines were not meant to be lifted. They really weren't. They were too heavy. They didn't really have engine hoists back in the day except for chains and ropes and blocks and tackles, so you don't really see these things anywhere else but just sitting on the earth. And now that I think about it, we have a chance. We can take a look at this gas tank here. And you know what? I don't see any pinholes. I see a major amount of rust right here, but it doesn't look like it's gone all the way through. Nope, I don't hear any cracking or creaking. I think it's cool they galvanized it too. But no, I have a solid gas tank. That's awesome. I'm still gonna line it and everything, make sure it doesn't leak, but yeah, we can use it. And I didn't even realize there was a little drain there too. It's pretty cool. Pretty neat. Pretty neat thing, I tell you what. Okay, so I don't know how well you can hear me, but I've got the one of the grease cups in the ultrasonic cleaner at the moment. Try and loosen up some of that grease. There's not really too much more I can go over. I rinsed off the governor assembly and camshaft, and I have that drying on the stove at the moment. I'm going to start working on that thing. We got all the other parts over there. I just painted the other side of the oiler tube. So yeah, there's not much else for me to talk about and explain for you guys until part 3. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more content. And Yamasaki out. We'll see y'all later in the next video.